Welcome back to Italy and to this, until recently, long abandoned Italian palace, and to some very exciting news that I have to share with you. After thinking about it long and hard and figuring out how we could make it work, my partner and I have decided that we're going to be opening up a huge portion of this palace to you and anyone else as guests. In today's episode, I'm going to be doing a deep dive, bringing you with me as we walk through each of these spaces. We intend to create a total of 3 large luxury suites, each one distinct and full of its own character and opportunities. After that, I'll then be taking you down to Florence, where we've been invited to the grand opening of a 5-star hotel, not anything we've ever experienced before, and taking the chance to understand the latest in smart interior design, and hopefully with your guidance and advice, bringing back the best of what we find there to our own designs and aspirations that we have for the guest wing here too. But that's not all, because whilst we're in the city, I'm going to be taking you to the antique gesso studio where our old friend Antinous here was handcrafted. And when we're back, we'll not only be discussing the logistics, financials, and timelines of all of these grand designs that we have, and we'll end on a nice palette cleanser, climbing a rickety ladder to place Antinous' pride of place in that niche in the veranda. You may have noticed that I did not post an episode last week, and that was because it was the anniversary of Emma and myself. It allowed us to take a little step back and to discuss all of the exciting plans that I'll be sharing with you today. And today I wanted to make a double episode to make up for that, and in fact it may even be longer than that. It's going to be much more of an informal video than my regular, tightly produced story arcs within episodes. And I think this is the best way to take it all in so that it's not overwhelming. Ultimately, this is a journey and we want it to be enjoyable and relaxing. So I hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's get going. So guys, welcome to the atrium of the palace. This is our main private entrance. And I'm going to be showing you in detail a wing of the palace that hasn't really been properly showcased before. We've got so many exciting ideas to share with you. This is just the beginning, it's part of a process, and we really want to make you a part of it. So please comment down below at a minimum, and in the months and years ahead, we really hope to open our doors to you, and in particular, curate these wonderful spaces I'm about to share with you, so that you can make your own little part of this palace's history yours. Now, what we want to do as people who have often rented out portions of their home before, we want to do it in such a way where we can strike a balance between maintaining privacy and that sense of home, which is just fundamental, because if you lose that, then honestly, we'll fall into a similar pattern that we have in the past where it just becomes a project. And I think this is part of why we have ended up selling so soon after finishing each of our renovations in the past. And that's been a wonderful journey in its own right, albeit stressful. And it's given us what we have here today, but we want to do this right. We want to do it sustainably and something that will work for the long term. So I'm taking you outside before I take you in so that I can showcase to you the external of the wing that we would love to open up. Now, there's so much to do. You'll see that there are wildly varying states of condition, whether it be something that looks like it's almost ready to go, to something that clearly needs months, if not a good solid year of renovations to make ready. But even in those better conditioned areas, there's so much to do to the utilities under the hood in terms of getting the correct permissions and making sure that we do everything correctly, that this really is going to be a year or two in the making. So as you can see here, we have this stunning facade, and this is the one that we want to open up to the world. Let me take you in now and explain to you all of the details. Please bear with me, this might be a bit of a long one. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the tour. So here we are, guys. Put your designer cap on, because there's going to be a lot of imagining in the room as I'm about to show you. We will be entering through the doorway I just showed you into this staircase that will be shared by all 3 of the guest suites. I'm actually going to take you upstairs first, because that's where the more characterful spaces are, And then I'll bring you back down again to the third apartment, where there's the greatest opportunity for us to have our own impact in terms of the design, because it's much more of a blank canvas. So up the stairs we go. We trot up this gorgeous marble and wrought iron staircase, and we arrive at this long frescoed corridor. Lots to be done here, taking advantage of these built-in elements and adding extra lighting along the walls to really give a beautiful suffused effect. And this is something I'm really looking forward to sort of researching, how high-end accommodations, hotels do this sort of thing. Because I do feel, strangely enough, it's the corridors that already give you that instant sensation that you're somewhere special. Speaking of somewhere special, so this is where you will arrive at 2 of the 3 guest suites. This door here brings you to the first. This doorway, of course, the glass will be frosted, so it's fully private, and you will be entering into a little foyer, a gorgeous little atrium with a completely unique ceiling. There's nowhere else in the palace quite like this. And you'll notice that it's quite a dark space, so this light will need to be something quite special, because it's the only way that this is going to be illuminated. We can have a nice moment for some artwork, maybe a mirror. Same here with that entrance pedestal. Now you'll notice there are 2 doorways here. This takes you through to something very special. I cannot wait to show you. It's going to blow your socks off, but let's first see the bedroom. And yes, guys, this is absolutely everything you would dream of a palatial bedroom to be. The motifs are stunning. I adore the color palette. The contrast is subtle but very classic. And this is one of the spaces which is in almost mint condition, I would say. There's very few areas that we would need to touch up and paint, but we're going to keep the color scheme exactly the same in this room. The parquet is stunning, albeit a little bit dirty. Everything here needs to be revived. Speaking of revival, these systems that will be sort of the power center of the bedroom, because of course the king-size bed will slot within it very comfortably. So we'll be reviving all of these systems, all of these electrics, the lights, up to modern standards, and it will be quite an interesting sort of game to figure out what can work in terms of, say, the abat-jour lighting on the bedside tables. We don't want to sort of like overwhelm on the classical details when it comes to the furniture, because already it exists in droves in terms of the architecture of the space. So of course we won't go ultra modern, but it's about finding that balance. That's going to be the fun part of the design process. Now the symmetry is something you know that I love, guys, so let's look through this first door. And this takes you through to a walk-in wardrobe. And yes, it is walk-in, it stretches all the way back there. Mind the cobweb. So with a deep, deep clean, that is already such a luxurious space to be enjoyed. Here we have the ensuite bathroom with, of course, as is standard with this stunning building, its own marble. Now the porcelains and the chromeware needs to be assessed as to what can be saved and what needs to be replaced. The marble, of course, will stay exactly where it is. But as you can see here, this note in Italian says, these taps are absolutely not to be opened under any circumstances. So that gives you a clue as to the state of the plumbing. I mean, if this sort of rustic pipe from the 50s or 60s with these hatch job repair works weren't sort of telling you enough already. The rest of the space does allow for some interesting designs. The lighting can be a bit more inspired. Of course, the water heater will be completely hidden, and the flooring, again, could use maybe a bit of an update, or I say update. This to me looks quite mid-century. Maybe we even take it back to terracotta. Finally, in this room, we have this other doorway, which actually is quite a surprise. It leads to the neighboring suite, which is one of those typical features that you'd find sort of like in an old school 5-star hotel like the Ritz in London or something. So there is the possibility, thanks to that connecting doorway, to rent out the whole floor if the guests would like, if there's a few of you staying. But for the most part, if this were just an independent suite, those 2 closed double doors would provide perfect noise insulation, and that would be that. But guys, we are not done with this suite, because let me take you through to the most jaw-dropping element of this whole part of the palace, the small veranda. This will be included in this guest suite. Now, this whole flank of the palace is east-facing. It's sunrise orientated, and we're in the late morning now, and even with this really dense overgrowth of the foliage, which of course will be paring back so you can start enjoying the sweeping views of the hills, we're already still getting some beautiful lighting in here, and you can just imagine what it will look like. This will act as the lounge of the space, and our idea is that each suite has at least a luxury bedroom, a separate lounge area where you can maybe even have a little dining table moment for takeaway food or just to enjoy some Prosecco. And I think this is going to be as luxury as a lounge could possibly be. The layout does present some challenges. We may have to zone it. So because it's quite long and thin, I'm thinking perhaps more of a cozy lounge area with armchairs and a small sofa down the end. And then in this section here, perhaps a round table with some more slim seating for that dining moment. But of course, we'll be having hanging lights to highlight these architectural features, to bring new light and life to these frescoes. This archway here will denote the end of the suite. This currently is just used as a through space. It's basically a corridor, and this connects to other parts of the palace. And so by closing this, we'll of course keep the doorway because it is uniquely built for this space, but we'll frost the glass, we'll put a heavy curtain on the other side, we'll keep it permanently locked. So it still will act as a feature. We could even do something clever like maybe backlighting the glass to act as a light feature, basically. But by doing this, it turns it from being a through space into a primary space, and one to be enjoyed by guests. How stunning is that? And before we move on, I'm actually going to take you outside because there's a very interesting aspect to understand about the whole project from out here. Here we can see the outside of the small veranda that will be a part of that suite, and below it is an enormous portico with 4 archways. It was once used as the kennel, believe it or not, so that's why these cages are here. But prior to that, it must have been a much more noble space because you can just about see the hint of a stunning fresco here with a larger-than-life fountain. And so we really want to return the noble sense of this aspect. I feel like this side of the palace hasn't really been shown any love in maybe a century or more. And so what we're going to do is make this the private entrance to the 3 suites that will be found, one below on the ground floor and then the 2 others above. We'll be doing this by turning this old window into a doorway, the other side of which is found a beautiful staircase that takes you directly to where you need to be. And so again, by utilizing this space, this will all be communal space to be enjoyed by the guests. We'll bring this portico back to life where, in addition to everything that you'll have on offer on the inside, you can come out and enjoy this space here and the immediate surrounding gardens, which at the moment, I must say, look like absolutely nothing. It is shockingly overgrown. But we will create a small parking bay here and a little park for people to walk through and enjoy. Now, I hope you're not completely overwhelmed, guys, because there is so much more to explore. So hold on to your pants and let's go to suite number 2. Now, this is a stunning corridor full of doors. It may make you think that there's even more to be discovered here. And in a sense, that's true, but a lot of these doors are simply storage spaces. A very retro vacuum cleaner there. And the next suite itself is found within this sort of alcove, flanked by 2 more beautiful applique moments. And coming into this suite, we're entering into the lounge. Now, this is actually a bit of a larger suite, believe it or not. The one that we just saw is the smallest. However, this is compensated by the fact that this is a fair bit more bare, as you can see. Now, the state of the parquet is stunning, and for the most part, it's still in really good condition. The color scheme in this one is a bit more anemic, so I think we can get away with being a bit more experimentational. But the proportions are excellent. You can hear a slight echo, I'm sure, as you hear me speak. The feeling is very palatial, very high ceilings, vaulting. Here, you can just about get the first sense of all of these utility works that I was sort of alluding to before that need to be done. This was a very severe leak that we found when we first arrived, and we were not able to solve it, but we were able to plug it, so to speak. But this is something that's going to need to be entirely replaced throughout. But going on to said room, we have the bathroom right next door. And this is joined by its own little atrium, slightly less decorated, but I think this means that we have creative license to do some decorating, wouldn't you say? Coming through to the bedroom. Now, this is a very dark room. It's going to need a lot of imagination, but trust me when I say that this is going to be very special. The main reason being this French door that you see here. Now, we are unable to open those shutters. That is the extent of the severity of the overgrowth on the other side. So we're going to have to get sort of like a tractor crane thing with a platform to clear all of that and open it up. But there is a sunrise terrace, panoramic sunrise terrace to be found that sort of wraps either side of the doorway there. And it's of exactly the same design as we have on the sunset terrace that adjoins to our private bedroom on the opposite side of the palace. And that is what's going to be eventually flooding this bedroom with light. And again, we have a bit more creative license with the design here, but we can take inspiration from these last remaining bits of artworks that did survive the auction a decade or so ago. You can still see the auction numbers there, but I adore this sort of like Far Eastern aesthetic that they've used. And the color palette, as always, where there is color in this palace, it is so well chosen. I love this sort of pastel teal against the cream. It's definitely going to be the basis of any design work that we do in this space. Finally, to exit the apartment, we have a second option. So there's two doorways into it. We have this little frescoed corridor that takes us back out into this long corridor. And these cracks that you see here, we've had them all tested by a structural engineer. For the most part, they are all hairline and something that can just be aesthetically patched up. And in a few other areas, we'll need to be doing a few tests, but there's nothing to be worried about structurally. It's more about making sure that this house, which is already centuries old, continues to settle as it does over the generations in a way that creates no more cracks in future. So that's going to be a long-term project. But speaking of the foundations, let me take you down into the bowels of this wing. We're going to go downstairs now to see the largest of all the three apartments. So returning to the ground floor, this is the entrance foyer. This door to the left is where guests would arrive from that private entrance through the portico outside I showed you. And the third and final guest apartment is found through this enormous glass archway here. Again, of course, the glass will be frosted, so you have full privacy. And this will take you into a space which I imagine would be very suitable as a lounge. Again, the lighting situation in here can be much improved, both in terms of clearing the outside, and there's all of these frescoed motifs with a lot of wall-like predisposition, which tells me that this could be an excellent situation for creating sort of like candle effect, suffused lighting, and I think the vibe and ambiance would be drastically improved. And so this could be a very cozy lounge area. Again, we have two-tone marble flooring. And so this is the one space that already is very rich in character and is more of a restorative job. But it's the rest of the apartment, which is quite large. And I do say apartment intentionally because there's all the facilities here that you'd expect from exactly that. I think this would be a much more ideal space for guests that are wanting to stay for more than a couple days because of this first room that I'm going to show you here to the left. we have our own kitchen. This one straight out from, I don't know what era, is it the 50s, is it the 60s? But a pretty spacious one at that, and I'm actually liking these original subway tiles. So of course, the systems need to be completely redone, and we can have much more of a cute, modern kitchen. And when I say modern, I of course mean it in the sense of the appliances, but this is an aesthetic question too, because whilst this space, as you can see, the doorways remain in the same character and finish as the rest of the palace, everything else is incredibly stripped back and utilitarian. If you saw my original walkthrough video when we introduced the palace, this is because this used to be where the priest lived. And so of course he had a very humble setup for himself. This here again, a fairly spacious bathroom that I think we are just going to rip out. Nice large double windows there, and start from scratch. And the only question is, do we at least keep the tiles, which my inclination is to say yes, but maybe we even do away with those two, and we just create a stunning, designed from zero, luxury bathroom. And finally through here, we have two more doorways, giving way to a larger bedroom and a smaller. Now this second room could maybe be sort of modular in the sense that perhaps this is where there's a sofa bed. And so if there are just guests of two, this could perhaps be a luxury dressing room space. It would be such a nice thing to have, but then is expandable, maybe if the guests have kids. But this is a very generous size, and I think you'll just notice a couple things here that really need to be addressed. Of course, let's not even talk about the systems, which will be completely hidden within the walls and refreshed, but I'm of course referring to the flooring and the low ceilings. What do we do here? Now, this flooring here is a type of tile called graniglia, and it's an early form of what Americans call terrazzo. This is going to be original to the 1930s renovation, so almost 100 years old. But as you can see, it's of a pretty low quality. They've even sort of like infilled a hodgepodge patch here and there where I think they ran out. So this was very much an afterthought of the space. And what I think we'll do is we will lift these tiles, put them into storage, either for a future project, or we'll even sell them on, because this is a sought after tile, even if this tone isn't exactly to my liking. But as you can see, aside from the marble flooring of the entrance room, the rest is very underwhelming and provides an opportunity perhaps for us to redo it all in terracotta, which I would love. The ceiling, on the other hand, low ceilings. I mean, relatively speaking, I think these are still about 3 meters high, maybe 3.5. But comparative to the rest of the palace, you're missing that sense of grandeur. And so this is where I think we can do something clever in terms of interior design. I am taking you guys to Florence in the next part of this episode, partly to visit that wonderful gesso studio that you guys asked me to take you to, and also to visit the latest brand new opening of a hotel in the city, a 5-star hotel, and they have the very latest in interior design that I want to take some notes from. They too are dealing with low ceilings, and they have quite an ingenious solution which I'd love to see in person, and perhaps we can replicate it here. Finally, of course, I promised an indoor-outdoor space for each of these suites, and this one is not lacking either, so let me take you outside now. And here we are, guys, exiting into your very own private portico, currently filled with trash, so please do use your imagination here, but already there's so much beauty to work with. The bare bones of it are stunning. We've got 3 archways. We will be covering these with trellises and even more greenery, uplighting them so you're perfectly private here. You'll still be flooded with light, but you will also have your own private outdoor space to enjoy. So there we are, folks. That's everything. If you're anything like me, that was just making your brain fire on all cylinders of all the possibilities. But I know it was a bit of a long one, so let me know if you enjoy that level of a deep dive, and it just helps guide me for future videos. So now we will travel down to Florence, to the grand opening of the W Hotel, where I'm going to be showcasing a suite that we've been invited to stay at, which we never normally would be able to. Where whilst everything that you've just seen is fresh in your mind, I want to also soak up all of the details that we find there. Now, aesthetically, it could not be more different than what we're probably going to be creating here, but the design language is what we need to look out for. Because, of course, being a 5-star hotel, having these successful hotels in prime locations all over the world, they are masters of all those tiny little details that we could replicate in our own way that help you feel like you're on that once-in-a-lifetime sort of Orient Express or 5-star hotel for your honeymoon sort of getaway or experience. And that's the lightning in the bottle that we're going to be trying capturing for this space here. So let's go and explore there. Given we used to live here in Florence, in fact we started our career in the city, it was like returning back home to an old friend. But we'd only ever known her as locals, and so it was almost like getting reacquainted in a new way, experiencing it through the eyes of a visitor who wants the very best of the old and the new. Goodbye! So, with those two beauties off to walk the streets of Florence, I cordially invite you guys to grab your suitcase and come with me to the W Hotel in Florence itself. And of course, you can see precisely where we are today with these characteristic townhouses. Even though this is a 20th century construction, of course, we are completely surrounded by the antique beauty of this city. And spoiler alert, this section here is going to be something you'll be seeing more of very soon. So here we are, guys, entering into the corridor with multiple doorways. We're going to be coming back to this space in just a moment. There's just the slightest preview to get you excited. But first, we're going to be checking out the bedroom space, which of course is the central part of any hotel room. And here we can see this beautiful array of subtle lighting and semi-reflective surfaces that really make this place, which is already such a large room, feel all the larger, cathedral-like. It feels double, triple height thanks to what they've done here with the ceiling, and I want to talk about that more in a bit. And I really enjoy the bedside lights. It almost is an ornament in its own right. I am just such a fan, if you followed me for any amount of time, of smart cabinets. You'll know this about me. The fact that you can just open a pair of doors and you have all of your sort of like mini, I even forget the word in English, like the elettrodomestici, the utility, the plug-in utilities that you'd want for a kitchen space, but in a more convenient area that you can have just tucked away for the most part, but easily accessible whenever you want it. And so not only do we have this to enjoy, we also have a small lounge area. And I find it so curious, the selections that they've chosen here. This one actually, I have a copy of myself sitting in Villa Bella Torre. We know the artist, Nafisa. She's a wonderful lady from Australia, and she is actually the lady who bought our very first apartment renovation in Florence all those years ago. I'm trying to think of when it was. Was it the year 2020, something like that? But that apartment renovation is the one that really set in motion the entire life that we have sort of accidentally built for ourselves. But anyway, this is not about you, Jordan. This is about this gorgeous space. Let's get back on track. But what I think is a particularly clever touch is, if you'll notice, they have 2 TV screens here. And this is just guesswork, but I'm imagining that this may be a smaller bed for kids, and probably they get provided with those sort of like noise cancelling headphones so they can sit or even, you know, lay in bed and watch their entertainment as you watch yours. I think that that's a very clever touch. Over to the view, can't forget that. We are overlooking one of the principal piazze in Florence. As you can see, we are in the bustling heart of the city. We've got the terminus of the tram. We've got Santa Maria Novella train station just behind this palazzo here. This is the Santa Maria Novella church itself. You can just see the hilltops of the south side of the river peeking up across the terracotta roofs there. And then following this road, just for a few minutes, you will arrive at the Duomo itself. So a very nice, cute little balcony. And then you are instantly enshrouded back into your zone of tranquility. But the area is not quite done yet because we have, ladies and gentlemen, a walk-in wardrobe to beat all walk-in wardrobes, or at least one that is going to be very inspiring for me as I work on making similar spaces in future projects, hint hint. And the fact that we also have a couple walk-in wardrobes at Villa Bella Torre, but they're sort of dressed much more minimally. I do like a few touches here that make you feel like this is a true luxury rather than sort of a bolted on space. And the sort of bespoke vanity, I think, is part of that. So on to the bathrooms we go. And here I believe that this is a porcelain tile, marble effect, but that does not detract from the sense of luxury in the slightest because the hardware here is just top notch. You've got, I will say his and his for our circumstance, but we got double sinks here to enjoy. And the same is true also for the showers found through here. And again, I think one of the smartest things with this kind of interior design is the use of suffused lighting. How you very rarely, if ever, see a naked light bulb. It's always sort of hidden away in a clever niche. And I think that that's something that we can take a lot of lessons from. And we have this stunning bathtub, which I am determined to throw myself into before we leave. We are now actually the morning after our stay. I did want to do this walkthrough tour when we arrived, but I was just so engrossed and overwhelmed that I was like, no, I have to throw myself into this place, enjoy it. And thankfully, the team is just so great here. They came up during our breakfast this morning to give the place a nice spruce up so I could give you a tour as if it was sort of like freshly prepared. So onwards we go. I have to do the bathrobe check. This is a brand new hotel, so everything is so luscious and soft, not crunchy in the slightest. Always nice to feel. But I'll be teasing you guys no longer. Here we have it. The most stunning space I have ever seen in a hotel room. This isn't a hotel room, it's a hotel suite, it's a hotel apartment. Okay, let's not get overwhelmed, let's focus on the details. We have this stunning bar floating right here in the middle. Again, marble effect, but I don't hold that against them because they have gone for authentic terracotta flooring, which I absolutely love because it ties this otherwise quite internationalist modern design that you may find, you know, in other luxury cities around the world. It ties it to a specifically Florentine space, and I love that. The reason for this is because terracotta, Italian terracotta, comes from a town just outside of Florence. It's a place called Impruneta, and of course we know it well. If you have seen any of our renovations of the apartments that we did here in Florence in years gone by, we took trips out there, we met the owners of the various furnaces, and I think I can actually recognize, thanks to the hue and the differentiation of the sort of patina and the herringbone shape, I think I even know the particular furnace that this is from. So it really warms my heart to see that, and it shows that this really has some intelligent interior design behind it. You know, they just haven't done slapdash, copy and paste modernism here. They've really tied in uniquely Florentine elements. This custom Sofa, oh my god, it could make me cry. I wish that we could have something like this for our cinema room that we have in Villa Bella Torre. Hey, it's inspiring. I don't know how I would make this, but now I have seen this, I'm gonna watch all the YouTube videos I need to learn how to make my own version of this for the cinema room of Villa Bella Torre. They have got such a stunning feature here. So of course they have their inset TV. I was confused about what this space was until last night. I was playing with this controller thinking that it was maybe to do with this light, and the most astonishing and thoroughly convincing artificial fireplace sprung to life, and it sort of released this perfumed steam. Didn't release any heat. Maybe there's a version for that for the winter, I don't know, but this is just such a fun idea to bring the various fireplaces back to life that we have in the palace, if it turns out that it's not able for them to be revived in terms of their original functionality, because of course the fireplaces must remain, and in any way we can, even if it's with clever modern technology, we must find a way to make them feel as if they are roaring with life. And it was a real treat actually being able to use that in the height of summer. We're here in August and it didn't radiate heat, so it was perfectly comfortable. So it was a very nice luxury experience indeed. But I have to show you the most jaw-dropping part of this apartment because we are not done yet. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to your private panoramic terrace overlooking all of the great landmarks of Florence. We have some very cute, modern, funky outside seating, and this is all yours to enjoy if you were to book this suite. But I'm not going to talk about this anymore because you know what I'm bringing you to. Slowly and surely, there she comes, sneaking up from behind the silhouettes of the buildings. Santa Maria del Fiore, better known as the Duomo. Here we have, any guesses for those of you who have been to Florence before? We have the Church of San Lorenzo, where we have some masterful works of Michelangelo hidden inside. And just this is one of my favorite aspects of Florence, these sort of undulating terracotta roofs. I just never get enough of it. And with that, I'll whisk you right across town to the antique gesso workshop that I have long promised to bring you to. Welcome to Romanelli, and originally this studio dates all the way back to the 1800s, and interestingly enough we actually used to be direct neighbours to these guys, and so we were fairly frequent visitors, always popping in, if for nothing else than a chat about the local gossip. But I just adore the proportions that can be found here, from small and niche to absolutely monumental. The craftsmanship is something that can only really be appreciated if you come and visit in person, which I highly encourage you to do. We had intended to find a partner for Antinous, you can see a copy of him there, but the craftsman was away whilst we visited, which just means I'll have to bring you lucky things back here sometime again in future. Well, that was quite the adventure. I hope you enjoyed these in-depth tours. And now that we're back in the palazzo, I can talk briefly about how we intend to carry over some of these ideas. But of course, this is just the beginning of the discussion, and I need to hear from you because this space is for you and others who will be coming here to enjoy it. So I want to know which of these starkly modern design elements that we saw in Florence could find their place here. Of course, we need to reverse engineer it in a way that makes sense with the much more classical and artisanal style of this place. And these are the things, of course, that make it so special. So anything that we add which is of a more modern mindset that ties into sort of more clever and the latest cutting edge of interior design needs to be done in a way that fits. So get involved, muck in down in the comments below, because the next step is to develop a visual idea, a representation on a floor plan and via mood boards, and even a 3D program which I use for other design projects to start to create an idea of how this is going to look. So what I'm hoping is that together we can start building a bit of consensus of what this might look like. Bear in mind, each of these 3 suites have their own characters. And this means we can, of course, go perhaps further with one idea in one suite than we do with another. And this is the nice thing about having these 3 spaces to play with. But of course, bear in mind that these changes that we're going to be making are potentially going to be here for a long time, maybe even centuries. So we have to get it right, and no pressure. Beyond that, there's a few logistics we have to sort out. So on the bureaucratic side, any ideas that we form, we're going to have to eventually bring to our architect, who will be able to formalize them in a way that we can then, of course, share with contractors, but also, in the first instance, use as part of a discourse and a negotiation with the superintendent. Now, this is a lady who is the representative of the cultural ministry here in Italy, and it's her job to make sure that any intervention that we do, whether it's seen or unseen, is done in a way that does not alter the fabric and character of the building. And there is some wiggle room in that if it can be well justified. And this might be something where, for example, in the portico, where we tend to change the window into a doorway, so long as we show that it's a way of reviving that entire facade, the east-facing facade, which has been shown no love or care, potentially for even more than a century, it would be a way to create a new sort of focal point to bring meaning to this once beautiful, grand entranceway. And I think we can make our case for that. And then, of course, bureaucracy aside, we need to talk about financing. And of course, this is something which Em and I are going to have to sit down and really put pen to paper to make sure that it's all going to make sense. We do think that longer term, 3 to 5 years after opening the guest suites, it should be able to break even and pay its own way. So longer term, I think it makes perfect sense. And with our initial works that we have done here to move in, to create a base camp, to start making it comfortable in these first few months that we have lived here, this has all come about from us renting out Villa Bella Torre during the summer season, which is still currently ongoing. For those of you who don't know, Villa Bella Torre was the project that we did prior to this. We did a 6-month live-in renovation and brought that property, which itself had been abandoned for a good couple decades, up to scratch. And we've been very blessed that it's been fully booked. It was nice to see it start to pay its own way. A villa of that size, of course, has its own costs, and the income is seasonal, so we only have a few more months of it to see us through until Christmas time. But we have at least been able to generate enough funds to be slightly more ambitious than we had ever even hoped for, being able to install air conditioning systems in at least the main rooms that we're using, and to be even more ambitious with the total conversion of the old dining room into our brand new kitchen, which I touched on a few weeks ago. In fact, we have been able to bring that forward in these days right now. And so next week, I've got a very exciting reveal to show you. So both on the bureaucratic side and the financial side, we're not going to be able to execute these ideas until early mid next year, and that's okay. In fact, it's a good thing. I've been playing this game for many years now here in Italy, and delays that come about through cash flow or through sort of the bureaucratic hurdles which you always need to face here, it has always been a blessing in disguise, because it forces you to not rush into it, to take it more slowly, and that when you finally can start, you're really well prepared and you know exactly what you want. But let's not get it twisted. This does not mean this project is going to be going dormant in the months ahead. In fact, once we start formulating a more coherent consensus in the discussion I want to have with you guys, and we start building this into a plan, the next step is actually to start buying things in, whether it be furniture or swatches for colors, materials, finishes in the bathroom, everything. So there's so many exciting things to do together before we even raise a hammer or a paintbrush. And so, with this odyssey of a video drawing to a close, just know that this is only the beginning and amazing things are to come. From Antinous and I, we wish you the warmest of farewells. Until next week.